We have all experienced that sudden, quiet wave of peace that washes over us the moment a social commitment falls through. You expected to feel a pang of regret, but instead it felt like a heavy weight was suddenly lifted from your shoulders. Almost immediately, however, a second thought likely crept in. Is there something fundamentally broken about me? I want to assure you right now that there isn't. At Quiet Pressure Sketchbook, we believe that understanding these internal signals is the first step towards self-acceptance. That surge of relief isn't a sign of laziness or a personality defect. It is the sound of your nervous system finally taking a long overdue breath. The fact that we are conditioned to feel embarrassed by this reaction is exactly what we need to challenge, because our modern world often treats a desire for isolation as a red flag that signals something is wrong. We're taught that if you enjoy your own company, there must be a hidden trauma, a social phobia, or some deep-seated wound driving you away from others. While it is true that sometimes we withdraw out of pain, it is equally true that many people simply process life better, feel more authentic, and love with greater depth when they have space to breathe. We are focusing on the wrong dilemma. The question isn't whether solitude is good or bad, but why we were ever pressured to choose a side. Consider a woman named Maya. She's a successful professional in her late 20s, well-liked and far from being a hermit. Yet, every time a group getaway is added to the calendar, a slow sense of apprehension begins to tighten in her chest. She never declines, fearing that saying no would be a stain. She returns from these trips with a level of exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix. For years, she viewed this as a personal failure, a social muscle she simply hadn't strengthened yet. It never occurred to her that she wasn't lagging behind, but was simply built with a different internal blueprint. Research by Elaine Aron regarding highly sensitive individuals suggests that nearly a fifth of the population possesses a nervous system that processes the world with unique depth. This isn't about being thin-skinned or emotional. It's about a brain that is running more background programs. When your mind is working that hard, you require more downtime to sort through the data. For someone like Maya, needing 48 hours of silence after a weekend away isn't an act of hostility. She is simply paying back a physiological debt that cost her far more than it did the person sitting next to her on the flight home. Yet, she will likely spend her life apologizing for that. There is a powerful cultural narrative that we often explore that suggests humans are strictly pack animals, and any departure from constant interaction is a sign of decline. It is true that we are built for belonging. John Cacioppo's work demonstrated that the ache of loneliness triggers the same threat centers in the brain as physical injury. We do need each other. However, needing a tribe is not the same as needing a crowd. The science regarding intentional solitude offers a much more interesting perspective. Psychologist Reed Larson found that when people choose to be alone, when it isn't a punishment or an accident, it actually leads to a more positive mood and deeper self-reflection. The pivot point is choice. Being stranded on an island is a nightmare. Choosing to go for a solo hike is a restoration. Unfortunately, our society has blurred those lines. We see a person dining by themselves and offer them pity. We see a friend decline a party and assume they are spiraling. We've written a script where showing up is the only metric for mental health, and stepping back is a sign of lack. Think about the toll this takes. When you spend decades masking your natural rhythm because you're afraid it's a flaw, you eventually lose track. You attend the events, you keep the conversation going, and you pick up the phone even when your battery is zero. This leads to a chronic, low-level burnout that people often blame on their jobs or their schedules. They rarely stop to ask, have I just been performing? Take a moment to sit with that thought. When you stop viewing your need for quiet as a problem, you gain a front-row seat to your own consciousness. This is where your true principles live, and where the emotions you pushed aside finally get felt. Silence provides a specific type of internal richness. Maya finally realized this in her early 30s during a quiet weekend where her calendar stayed empty. She stayed still long enough to hear her own inner voice. She later described it not as a retreat, but as the first time she felt like the lead. People who are truly at peace in their own company aren't just avoiding the world. They possess a sharper perspective because they aren't constantly being swayed by the energy of the room. They are often more comfortable standing their ground because they've already vetted their ideas in the stillness. This kind of mental autonomy is becoming a rare commodity. Of course, we must be honest, solitude can also be a shield. It can become a comfortable way to hide from growth. There is a version of being alone that isn't about filling the tank, but about running away. Only you know which one you're doing. Recharging feels like coming to life. Retreating feels like a relief that turns into a hollow numbness. If a weekend alone leaves you feeling heavier and more disconnected, that's not a judgment, it's just data to understand yourself better. The people who handle solitude effectively don't make it their identity. They are simply tending to their inner garden so they can return to the world more regulated and capable. Real intimacy requires you to be present, and you can't be present if you've spent energy pretending. In an era that profits from your distraction and treats stillness like a bug, choosing to sit with your own thoughts is a radical act of defiance. If you felt that sigh of relief when your plans were scrubbed, or if you've always felt more real in the quiet than the spotlight, I'm not going to tell you it's a superpower, that's just another label. What I will tell you is that it's a vital piece of your makeup. The only real tragedy is spending your life defending that need, hiding it, or feeling guilty about it, rather than actually utilizing it. If this perspective felt like a mirror to your own experience, then you are exactly the kind of person who belongs here. Explore the other deep dives currently on your screen. Consider subscribing to join our community and support these explorations.